Boston Dynamics has developed a new robot that they're calling Stretch. It's meant to automate the movement of goods and packages within warehouses. And this is certainly a little different from what Boston Dynamics has put out before. If you've seen that like robotic dog looking thing, that was there we go, that's what I'm talking about. It's in the B-roll as we speak. That's also a Boston Dynamics robot. And a lot of these previous robots meant for automation were really out of reach for companies that would literally need to shift things around within their warehouses. They would have to have an infrastructure in place in order to accommodate those robots. That's not the case with Stretch. So the robot is called Stretch and looks relatively dull for a Boston Dynamics creation. It's not modeled after humans or animals and instead aims to be as practical as possible. It has a square mobile base containing a set of wheels, a perception mast with cameras and other sensors, and a huge robotic arm with 7 degrees of freedom, which will essentially take jobs away from people working at these warehouses. And that's really what this story should be about, but that's not what anyone's focusing on. Also, it has a suction pad array on the end that can grab and move boxes up to 15 pounds in weight. So let's take a quick look at a demo of what this robot looks like and how it works. So Boston Dynamics is alleging that this robot can move or shift up to 800 boxes per hour, comparable to a human. Some speculate that that's not necessarily true. But really, Nando, what I wanted to talk to you about is, in this environment where we do not have organized labor, automation can be pretty devastating. Whereas if you have a situation in which labor has a seat at the table, they're able to negotiate, automation could actually be great. It could free up their time to focus on other more fulfilling aspects of the company. But we're not in that situation, at least not in the United States.
Yeah, I mean, that video was terrifying, by the way. But you're absolutely right. I mean, their technology need not be a destructive force in our lives. It could be an emancipatory force in our lives. For lack of a better way of explaining it, the Star Trek vision of the future is one in which technological advancement frees humanity from the need to do drudgery and awful work, and basically everyone in the world can live lives of comfort and leisure. And then the Star Trek people just do that stuff by choice. They don't need to be out there exploring the universe. They do it just because they want to. But that's not the world we live in. We live under capitalism, and we live under a system of hierarchy and domination. And in that context, what it is technological advancement is just to displace workers from one industry to another, which is always very traumatic and very difficult because it's not as easy for someone to just change their career, change their lives, uproot their physical location often. It is one of the great ironies of our time that under capitalism, we've seen technological advancement, the likes of which human history has never really seen. But we are unfortunately working longer hours than ever. It has not led to the freedom that we really should. It's, if you look at the amount of hours people working in the day, the amount of precarity that people experience in their lives, it's totally unnecessary. It's really totally unnecessary. And it comes down to who owns the machines, who owns the robots, who owns this technology. Do a handful of wealthy people own it, because if that's the case, they'll just use the technology to enrich themselves and to dominate the rest of us, to keep us beaten down. If we all own the technology and we all own the machines, we would use them for our benefit. We would not have to work in Amazon fulfillment centers ever again, because we would just live lives of comfort, because all our material needs would be taken care of. But that's not the world we live in today. We just have to get there somehow.
Right. No, and that's exactly right. And it's not just about who owns the technology, but who owns the means of production. And so if you have a co-op where decisions are made democratically, well, yeah, this type of technology could be fantastic, right? You could vote on how you use the technology and what your colleagues can spend their time doing. They could spend time innovating, maybe finding solutions to other issues that they've come across with the business model of the company, right? But that's not the case here. We're living in a investor-based economic system, right? Where you have these investors looking for a return on their investment. And one of the ways that they're usually able to secure that return on investment is by cutting costs. And how do they cut costs? Well, they get people fired, laid off. They find ways to pay people less for the work that they're doing. And that's the environment that we're living under. And if you're living under that culture, that system, these robots and this technology is not seen as an upside to you, the worker. It's seen as an upside to the shareholders, the investors, who again are just looking to cut costs, increase profits, and get a nice fat return on their investment, really.
Well, Uber is a perfect example of this. Uber is a remarkable company and a very much a test case, I think, in terms of like how insane the system we live in is today. Uber loses like $6 billion a year in net losses. Like, I don't understand how that is even possible. Like, what are they spending all their money on? But despite that fact that Uber loses literally billions of dollars a year in God knows how, investors still pump money into Uber and still see it as a worthy investment, because they understand that at some point Uber will just employ a fleet of self-driving cars that will take us to and fro. But I mean, obviously that's a very big and risky bet, but they're willing to lose in the short term billions and billions and billions of dollars a year and prop up this company artificially in order to then own that, what you described, that mean of production, which is the fleet of self-driving cars, which are going to take us to and fro, and then extract profits from there. That's it. That's it. That's their game. Uber does not work as a sort of driver model. It just really does not. There's a reason why taxi cabs are more expensive than Uber. It's because that's what you need to make. That's what they cost. Undercutting those prices lead to literally. I think they lost $6 billion last year, and I think they lost something like $7 billion the year before. It's like, I don't understand it.
Yeah, I don't understand it either, especially when you consider the fact that Uber is not purchasing or leasing a fleet of vehicles for their employees to drive. Employees are driving their own vehicle. Like, you're right. Where does the money go? Uber is effectively just an app. It's just an app, really. Yeah. Like, they developed an app.
What's like on the high end of how many like engineers they need to have to oversee the app? Like 200? Like that's all it is. What else do they need? I don't get it. I guess maybe some marketing expenses, blah blah. This is $6 billion a year in losses, like net losses, expenses minus revenues. I don't understand. Like, that means that their like expenses every year have to be like in the tens of billions, and I don't understand on what. I really don't. Where they're just like throwing money into a trash can and lighting it on fire. I don't get it.
And they're certainly not paying for benefits for their drivers. No. In fact, they succeeded in their campaign to crush workers in California with the passage of Prop 22. So there's like a whole new classification of workers that aren't even really considered employees. So as a result, Uber doesn't have to provide any benefits to these drivers who are bringing in whatever money they do bring in. and I guess squander irresponsibly to the point where they're losing billions of dollars every year. But the point here is the automation, the technology is not the problem. It's the system under which we're operating that makes it a problem, because the individuals who actually, work at these companies, build the wealth for the executives at these companies. They're not the ones who have a say on how these robots will be deployed, how they'll be used, and ultimately what their fate as workers will be. So for anyone who's celebrating this in the media because, ooh, technology is cool, just understand that there are consequences to it if you're in a situation that we're experiencing here in the United States.
Well, you know what they're actively.
One other thing.
Yeah.
One quick thing I wanted to say. I am curious to see how. I want to differentiate how this plays out in the United States versus some of the Scandinavian countries, for instance, that have strong labor unions, because I would venture to say that there are going to be potentially different outcomes. And there is a reason why, online security and online privacy tends to be taken a little more seriously in European countries versus the United States. But with that said, what were you gonna say, Nando?
Well, no, just that that the like with the media that you were talking about, like how they're celebrating this, they are actively developing AI to like generate news articles. Like they're coming for you too, bro. Like this is not, you think like you're safe because you have to do like some sort of like knowledge-based job, but and those workers at the Amazon fulfillment center are just like mindless drones who have to package stuff. But the takes are gonna be algorithmically generated very soon, and you're gonna be out of a job as well. So yeah,
they're already testing it out. Yeah, they're already testing it out with some of the videos that they play in those, Hill articles. Have you ever come across those? I'm just like, yes. Is this a person or is this a robot? Anyway, but no, and I'm kidding. They're actually real people. Broadcasting there is a skill involved in it, but that's a completely different discussion for a different time. Yeah, well, I would like to think.
Thanks for watching The Young Turks. Really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR. So those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.